4:30 p.m. Those present: Jim Ferrara, Keith Shambo, Larry Koob, Mark Borger. For the record, we have 3 visitors: Judith Martin, Joanne Bean, and Alan, I forget,
Brown.
Brown. That was on.
What's that?
That was on Brown, I said.
Brown low.
Oh, Brown, okay.
Yeah, that's right. I've been called lots of things.
With that said, I guess we have a quorum.
You
So, adjustment to the agenda, we're gonna move number 9, Stephen Bean Tribute Stone, up to this item suggested any capital approval plan and non-directional leaking. So, Joe, is Joanne up?
Yes, I would recommend moving her up to this item, so she doesn't have to.
Mrs. Bean, you have the floor. Mrs. Bean, you have the floor.
All right, after Julie's gonna take the floor.
So brief history of it, I think my mother had a kind of in mind, a little over a year ago, and then it was told it was kind of too wordy. So, but looking at the sign, we'd like to work with Rangeley, and we'd be happy to do the work, to move a big boulder rock there, there's so much what's there now, and to put a sign on it that describes my father's, and I cut a shorter paragraph prepared. And the only reason that my mother would like to do that is because now when you see the Stephen A. Bean memorial thing, you go up to the plaque underneath it, and it's not about my father, but,
Taylor.
Taylor, thank you. The street beside it is actually named for him, but the plaque's over there, which is fine. And the only thing we were wondering is if the town would like to, if we could put another rock there, we'd be happy to put 2 beside it, whatever.
Do you have an idea of what you want to do? I mean, of something?
I don't, because I kind of thought we would work with you if you wanted 2 on each side of the sign.
Well, I'm Paul would ask, I'd let you do anything you wanted, so I guess the board can.
You just drove by when I was up there looking at it, and the one that for Taylor is right under the sign. And I don't know if you looked at those rocks there, but the one right to the left it's a darkish color rock, it's kind of blackish, but it's got a big flat face on it, like, 3 feet by 4 feet, and it looks like if you just hit that with the bucket of an excavator and turned it, a few inches, that would be a beautiful place to put a plaque on, and you wouldn't have to, you can go look at it, at some point and see if you agree or not. And then my thought was to take the one under the sign for Taylor and put that outside the sign so that there'd be one to your father on the left and one to Taylor on the right, and have just like a planter or something under the middle of the sign. I thought that would look nice, but that's just my opinion, and I was surprised how nice that rock was on the left-hand side though. So
Is there any more discussion
you
on
might want to look at it anyway.
Any more discussion amongst you other 2 voters?
No, I mean,
Are you in favor of such a thing?
absolutely,
Jim?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So the board blesses the concept of Joanne Judy and bring it to the selectmen and get their approval, we agree.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the airport commission recommend the Joanne and Judy Bean's request to put a plaque there to the board of selectmen.
I'll second that. All those in favor? To vote.
You know what we do, Vinings will make sure everything's fine.
The only other question I have for you, to make it like, less maintenance as well, where there's possibly putting something underneath it so you don't have to mow the grass right around.
Some granite or something.
But you just don't under the whole thing, whatever, make it,
Like a little piece of countertop or like countertop.
well, that'd be nice. Well, awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, your husband could put down some filter fabric and some erosion control mix on it. that doesn't need maintenance, but, you know, every 5 or 6 years or
That's
something
kind of
like
what I was
that.
thinking, because it's getting kind of bad, or we have some, the crushed granite or something.
Yeah,
we keep
yeah,
it from-
yeah.
Something like it needs to be mowed.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Less maintenance and that.
Right?
Well, thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I guess we put it in the selectmen hands, correct?
That is correct. I'll bring it to them.
Awesome.
I'll bring it to their next meeting.
Yeah, we're just an advisory committee.
When you do a good job.
Don't get to make
right?
many decisions.
They usually agree with what we suggested. Article 4, to review the minutes for the last 3 months. I take a motion to accept the minutes as read unless there's any changes.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Oh,
Let's do one at a time. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from our April 26th meeting.
All those in favor, April 26. Everybody. May 25th.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from our May 25th meeting. Yes.
All those in favor? All right,
And then the other one's just notes from June because we didn't have a quorum.
all right. So the July 28th, no quorum, no action required. Public to speak on any non-agenda items.
I guess I'm the public.
Well,
I'm just curious what the plan, reaching forward with hangars up there. Is there a plan to build any more, or are there,
the town never built any in the first place.
those are private, I know those are ones we bought, but is there any land being set aside for more? Is there, talk, or is there a forum or group together that's talking about building?
Everything north of Greg Leeson's hangar is
Okay.
available to be rented.
It's the rent as far as least the land, yeah. So is there a group that is actually looking at building hangars right now?
I don't know that there is, but I think there's a lot of interest in hangars. I don't know where. I don't know. I'd have to check back into the master plan if one were to build another 8 or 10 pack. If that is your thought process.
Well, I would like to get one of the ones that's there now, but I'm about ready to move the plane that I'm building up there, either there or take it to Florida with me, I don't know which.
Take it where?
Florida, I spent half the year down there right
I
now.
don't
We're no longer residents in Range.
I don't know what you're no longer.
So we were for a while, but we're splitting our time. So,
So I don't know. I would think that it would be wise for someone to make a post of some sort about those who may be interested in building another multiple pack of hangars up there for the efficiency of it. There's a lot of people have talked to me about hangars,
yeah, that's what I thought.
but no one has really wanted to pull the trigger individually.
Do we have a list of pilots in the area that are, I don't know, that you know are interested, or I know way back when, I think I had talked to you a couple of years ago about, having a mailing list of the Rangeley pilots that,
I don't know of one. I know that guy.
Yeah, I've got 2 guys that are also looking for hangar space as well. And I had gotten a couple quotes to start building a hangar, but that was in July.
because it doesn't seem like there's a big turnover on the hangars.
There's not.
Hangars.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, that's just it. So,
The last time that it was done, a few of us bought multiples and sold them before construction, but it needed 10 people to
right,
get it going. I think at the time we had 7, and the association bought one, and I bought an extra, and I don't remember, but they were all sold before the.
before the actual construction.
You don't get the word out. Then, oh, look, hangers, I wanted one, nobody told me.
Right. No, I mean, now that we've got the nice new runway, and, the economic impact, I know it's ancillary, you can't really put a number on it, but, it's gonna bring people, I mean, people will be coming, and if there's more hangar
I
available.
have to believe
I mean, I don't
that.
even know what we do for transits right now, like my friend that brought that Baron, and he was asking if I come up skiing in the winter, is there a transient? And I said, no, so I'll talk to Keith.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough. Just space somebody.
I think we would have no trouble getting use out of them, so that's why I was
I
asking.
don't know, it's gonna take somebody to ramrod it, much like Peter Holmes did back 10 years ago.
And I think in the master plan, didn't we set aside all the next blocks for the individual
Yeah,
hangars?
the airport layout plan,
Mhm.
has future hangar spots all laid out.
It does, okay.
So it would be
And,
large
you
hangars.
could meet with the airport manager and review that plan.
Yeah, like-
And, if,
So even
if
individual
you think
hangars.
that, you know, if there's not enough for another 10-pack, but you and some people want to build a conventional one and share it,
Right.
you know, I think that land's available for lease and pretty much ready to go.
Okay, I'll have to get
I don't
with
know,
Joe.
I don't know that there's a provision up there for another 10-pack. I have to check with the engineer for that, but,
I don't remember seeing
There
that.
I
wasn't.
don't remember either, but, it doesn't mean it couldn't be looked at, if a 10-pack is what you decided to do. I mean, the problem is that 10-pack is much more efficient than a box hanger.
Oh, yeah, no,
It's
obviously.
not efficient,
Right.
economic.
Yeah, there are different ways of configuring hangers that you can do. I mean, you can do a shorter, you can do the back-to-back, kind of like an octagonal, and there are a bunch of different ways.
The only thing I know that they won't allow up there in that, one of those 200 by 200 square foot lots, whatever it is, I don't think they would allow someone to build a 60 square foot, I'm sorry, 40 square foot building. There was some opposition against that.
I don't think there was opposition, but it's, you know, they have to pay for the whole lot.
Yes,
So you could, they wanted to make sure the fronts were lined up.
yes.
That was the big thing, if I remember correctly.
And the only thing we've always been cautious and conscious of is the sex appeal
Aesthetics,
of the whole line.
yeah, yeah,
That
obviously, yeah,
is important to the
mhm,
future. I mean, you wouldn't want a green belt, for instance, or
exactly. Yeah, you don't want a hodgepodge.
Right.
Which a lot of airports will allow.
we're certainly open to it.
Okay.
More revenue from down and it's whatever. I think I could probably put together 5 people in a week if you, they might want
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, keep,
Yeah, I know,
I'll talk to
I know
you
two
guys.
already
yeah,
with me included, so.
that was the public question.
All right, thank you for your input. Go for it. No more public to speak. Close that section. Correspondence to be read, there's a lot of it. But I think, Joe, you have something to present to us today? Where's that? You have something to present to us? Did you say the engineer or something was young?
Oh, yeah, so Irv Deck is with us. Irv, the video is not working. Can we do a sound check and make sure you're hearing us okay?
I can hear you just fine. Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome. So we can hear you too. Let's go to, you want to go to item 8, Larry, where the instrument approach procedure? You want to talk about that?
Again,
Okay.
that's what we're doing about.
Yeah, well, Irv's here for a couple of topics, and Alan's actually here for a couple of these too, I think the NDB. But first we want to talk about something that was on your agenda back in June. You didn't have a quorum. So we've loosely talked about the instrument approach procedure. This is something that came up in an FAA meeting I was in a few months ago. Josh Dixon from Lifelight asked the meeting, you know, what's going on with the instrument approach, Rangeley. I don't like the circling approach. Where are we at with the IAP? The answer was, well, we haven't made any progress. So he and I got together. He made the application to the FAA, and they're reviewing it. And it looks like sometime next March, it's going to be approved. Since that time, and we talked about it, I think when we were at the actual airport, Keith explained to me, you know, it's a similar approach to Vail, and you know, it's 3.7 degrees offset. Since then, I've had some questions about what impact that may have on downtown Rangeley. Is there a way to move that approach north so that it would be, instead of coming, you know, 3.7 off center line, it would be some other angle to the north of the runway. We had some precursory discussion about that in the last meeting, but Irv is here. He may have some thoughts on that, and you know, Adam Allen's a pilot. He may have some thoughts on that too. I just wanted to have that discussion so that we're ready in case we're presented with that question as the process moves forward.
So people are concerned about the noise or what on that
I
road?
think that was the concern, is that 3.7 off center. There's a picture of it in your packet there. It kind of shows it not directly over the downtown, but you know, more this way than center line.
Does that line really look like it's going to be any more offensive than the other line over town?
This is the extended center line, but this is the 3 offset, 3 offset.
But I don't see that there's a whole lot
It's
of.
not even close to town.
Right.
Yeah, and they're only doing it because of Saddleback right there.
Right.
So they come over here, see the ponds over there. And this is all lower terrain here anyways. If it went to the north, you'd be in higher terrain. You got Mount Abraham, you got Sugarloaf, you got the rest of Saddleback.
Mount Abraham's to the south.
Mount Abraham's right. It would be right in here.
I know where it is, I don't know.
Anyway, go ahead.
But that was really it. I just wanted to have that discussion and have you be aware that that was a question.
My thought would be on that is it's gonna be seldom used, so seldom used, other than by a few, that it would have very little dramatic effect on the community. If you change the offset. It's not like we got Delta Airlines coming in here like Prescott. You're not gonna see,
And airplanes are on approach, they're quiet on approach when they
you
are
have to
takeoff.
throttle back, right? They're not revving up.
Right.
Throttle back. Yes, sir. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Irv, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, not really. I think when the FAA designs those, they're shooting for a perfect straight in, and obviously it didn't work there because of high terrain. So I'm sure they picked the most optimum angle that'll keep you within the straight in approach parameters. So I don't think going north, if going north would have helped, I mean, you can certainly pose the question, but I don't think it'll make it yet. I think somebody mentioned the high terrain out there with Sugarloaf. So that's about as optimum as you might get.
Okay.
I have a quick question on that, if I ask a question. So obviously, we're not doing any ground-based navigational aids. So what does it cost us to have something like that done? It's just an FAA paper shuffle, right, to get a certified approach to go into either 3.2 or.
I assume it's not.
I mean, because it's all GPS based now.
There's no dirt work to it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically, it sounds to me like if they can do one, they set it up, obviously, they gotta do the tourist requirement, get it all figured out. It's no skin off our backs, and like you said, I don't think it's gonna be used all that much, but it would be nice to be able to get into, go down to LTV men's if you could, or even close.
What would that do for minimums here?
Irv, did you catch that question?
I heard part of it.
What would the minimums be on that approach?
I couldn't answer that question. I suspect they're gonna be pretty high based on the high terrain, but I don't know. I don't have the software to do those kind of calculations.
There was a previous note and it was 300 feet, I think,
As opposed to 4?
200.
No, you don't have to do it now.
No, this is considered a straight in, so.
Can you refresh my memory of why the 3.7 offset to begin with?
Because it keeps.
Because of sound.
Because of saddleback. So going the other way would be worse.
Right. Draw that same line over here.
Right.
It's going right over the top of the sound.
Okay, all right, so that's just, so I thought I was missing something, so to me, it's obvious you have to go south. If they decide that they have to go south, I think it's gonna have to go south.
But a 3.7 degree offset is not very offset.
No, and then if you look also between Route 16 and where it's offset, that 3.7, I mean, if you measured it, I don't know, is it 100 yards?
Right.
Wide,
Across the
the
board.
difference,
Right.
It's really.
Yeah, and almost go rid of that's border patrol. Right there, that border.
Right. Back here it makes more of a difference.
And there's nothing up there.
And there's nothing out here. Here, I don't know, I don't see an issue.
So they obviously don't need our bus to move forward, do they?
No, that's already in motion. This is really kind of an exercise in keeping everybody informed, really. And if there were any red flags, I want you to bring them up now, so that we can.
Well, thank you for presenting that. And you have something else, right?
Yeah, so the next item that I want to talk about, and Irv probably doesn't know an awful lot about this, but he might. I wanted to kind of poll you folks, based on the conversation I had with Alan the other day. I may have talked about it with you folks too, the NDV. So the thing is obviously when it spits, it's frequently out, not working. My question is, how often do pilots use the non-directional beacon? Do we need it? The second part of that question or topic is, the FAA is still involved in that, still part of our checklist. Stan was there with me in the spring. It worked for a while. I think it's on the blink again. So I'm just trying to figure out, how do we proceed with this? I did ask Tim Lesige at DOT, is there a procedure for decommissioning this thing? He wasn't sure. So maybe, Irv, that's the question for you. Have you ever heard of anybody decommissioning an NDV Part A? And Part B is, does anybody still operating NDV that you know of other than Randy?
Well, I don't know of many airports that still have them. Last I heard, a lot of them are overseas, like in third world countries, but in the US, they're being decommissioned pretty fast. And yes, I was involved in decommissioning the Wiscasset NDB about 10 years ago. And also the one up at Greenville, we went through the decommissioning process with them. So it's pretty straightforward, just a matter of firing a letter off to the FAA.
No longer appropriate.
It is, but they can replace it with a fix for GPS.
So I guess my question for the commission is, I'm looking for advice on that. Do we continue to maintain this thing? Do pilots use it? And then I've already admitted that the thing is on a blink half the time anyway. What do we do?
I don't know a single pilot that still uses one, except, like he said, in a third world country. And you probably confer, I mean.
Actually, so the Kamchatka Peninsula, Petropavlovsk, got rid of their triple NED approach. So that's the Russians.
Mhm.
So I don't know of anybody that does it.
Yeah.
You go to South America, you might find nobody here.
Yeah.
But there's nobody, when you can take a GPS and like you said, just make a fix out of that point, why would you ever, I don't even think most planes even have the NED receivers anymore.
Yeah, we've all removed.
Yeah, just take that out, yeah. So I was surprised when you told me it was still commissioned.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I thought the thing was shut down years ago. You know, the minimums aren't even gonna get you close to what you've got on your circling right now. I mean, it's gonna be the same minimums almost for an NED.
Yeah, so we had the beacon there, because that's where the beacon is right just south of Ball Mountain, and that's where the approach came in from. But we'll probably still have that circling approach, but no one will probably ever use that circling approach anymore, especially if we get this straight in.
Okay.
So I don't see any.
Keith, what's the minimums on the circling ground? 555? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it is.
I think so you could probably get another 250 feet out of going down if you had a straight in, even if it's offset a little bit, which would buy you a little, for a light fighter, it buys you a little bit getting in.
Yes, 555.
555 is the minimum strength at the AGL or above the airport.
And really the only time we use the beacon now, and we really don't even use the beacon, it's still inside of our software. And on the departure, if you're taking off runway 32, it's a climbing left turn to the beacon. But I'm not tuning in to the beacon, actually. The frequency, I think, is 221. And even I did, the beacon's out of service right now. So it's still a fix on the GPS in our approaches.
Okay.
But I believe you can still decommission it. They'll just turn that into a GPS fix. That's all they're gonna do.
Okay. Irv, how did the process begin in those other airports? Was there a letter that came from the elected folks or the advisory folks? How did that start? Do you recall?
Well, it was Cassett. It was just the airport advisory committee made a recommendation and the town manager said, fine. It hadn't, like yours, it hadn't worked for years. We were spending a fortune on repairs and the park became harder to get. So it was just a recommendation from, I think, if I remember right, the airport advisory committee to the town manager, and they wrote a letter. I think I wrote it as a manager back at the time, not the town manager, but the airport manager. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if you folks want to think about that until the next meeting, if you're ready to make that recommendation tonight. Or if you have a different
I don't know of anybody that has a ABF in there anymore. There's no equipment to read it in the airplanes around it. It's all obsolete. Avionics don't fix it anymore.
Yeah, I would say this is a good time to get rid of it. Okay.
We all have it, but you just listen to the radio. Right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to vote to advise me to begin the decommissioning process, I could do that.
I would probably initiate that today.
I would take a vote then on the board to have Joe initiate process when the NDB fix as defined on the chart. All those in favor?
Second.
Or anybody opposed? Sorry.
Second, someone gonna second.
Oh, in a second. I need a second.
I can second.
I have a first and a second on decommissioning the NDB site. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? This vote, you have the vote of the committee to disarm the NDB.
Perfect, thank you. And then real quickly, crack ceiling is on here, Mr. Chairman, because we had some, about $10,000 worth of work done this past spring. It was supposed to be done last fall, but the weather turned on, so it didn't get So I think you've all seen where we had the crack sealed, and that just came out of our operating budget. There are no plans at this point to do any further crack sealing. At the airport, there is a bid out or an RFP out currently for streets. Somebody asked that question. That's just the update there. The other thing I want to talk to you about, and I apologize, this wasn't in your packets over the weekend, is the CIP. And Irv is familiar with this. This bigger picture, bigger paper that I handed out is an option from used to be Stacy. Stacy moved on to Maine DOT, FAA, somewhere else, but she had prepared this early in the spring. Kind of as a reaction to the elephant in the room, the runway extension grant. Basically knew that, that money wasn't coming in that format, it wasn't coming in lump sum, but they offered to kind of spread it out over a few years. I have not accepted this at this point. I think I'd like to wait on that approach. So the smaller, the one pager is the one that Tim received sent over. I think this is the one, I know this is the one that Irv and I talked about in our pre-meeting the other day. It's this one. This is the one that I'm in favor of here. So I wanted to share this all with you. So I don't want to keep anything from you. There are two kind of approaches on the table. One of them is from Stacy at DOT that kind of has 3 years of entitlement funds being used to essentially pay ourselves back for what we didn't receive reimbursement for in runway. And then the one that Irv and I kind of focused on in our CIP planning meeting that we intend to talk about with FAA on September 15th is this one page that's got a color on it. So basically, as you go down through, or do you have that in front of you? You do? Okay.
I do.
Okay. In case I have any questions, I'll call on it. But so there's a loan to Pittsfield that's in progress. Oh, you might not have it, Mark. Here, grab a. Sorry about that.
It wasn't in the email one.
No, it was.
Okay, I got one off the state.
Okay.
See,
You can track it kind of as it goes through. Loan to Pittsfield, that's outgoing. We had 402,000 in the tank. 300 is being loaned out. We're getting that back in 2024. We owe Wiscasset some money from a similar arrangement that occurred a couple of years ago. So we're repaying them next year, 2022, to 56,100. The most important thing to me on this sheet is the master plan update. So that was supposed to happen in terms of the schedule, was supposed to happen this year, where we're at right now because of COVID. That didn't take place. So it is happening next year. And that's why the hangar conversation was timely, certainly. And I have a lot of other things I want to talk about in terms of the master plan. What are we going to do over the next 10 years with that? That's the big thing that's coming up, is the master plan. And we're really, and correct me if I'm wrong, or this is the first one I've done, but we really need to be focused on the next couple of years, right? Those are the things that are less flexible in terms of planning. We want to look out, obviously, 10 years, but the ones that are really most important to FAA is the next couple of years. And master plan is next year. Irv can't, or we have to put that out to RFQ. So we'll have to get that rolling shortly. I'll talk with Tim Siege about that. And then repayment from Pittsfield, that comes in 2024. Pavement maintenance, that's 2024, 100,000. We'll want to look at that a little more closely. Or do you think that's enough, 800,000 for the apron, parking apron in 2025?
I'd have to look at the layout again, Joe, and have Dave Netto, our engineer, look at it.
Okay.
I'd be more comfortable if he looked at that.
Okay.
Joe, I have a question on.
Yes, go ahead.
On the street, I thought there was a discussion about this approach was going to be not doable without a parallel taxiway.
The minimums would be higher without a taxiway.
Okay. There was some discussion about the parallel taxiway to get a year or two ago. But without a parallel taxiway, it was difficult to get the minimums too low. But they may have corrected some of that with hammering on the end. All right, now.
I don't know if that, yeah, it depends, if it were like it's not less ground base, you have to have definitely a separation. I don't know in the GPS space if you have that much separation necessary. And if it's got, I guess that would be somebody that does.
Because I thought there was a question that Lloyd King said at the airport that day, that to have a precision approach, you need parallel texting.
I'm not familiar with that. That's,
You said a lot of things that weren't true.
Well,
it's a few years out, but that's a good question we want to keep an eye on as the plan for this.
It just makes sense that the minimums are gonna be higher until we get a parallel taxiway. Because if the minimums right now, say they only give us minimums of 500 feet, you don't wanna break out at 500 feet above the surface, and all of a sudden there's an airplane parked on the runway that you see.
Right.
You know, or now, or they give us minimums like 200, now you break out at 200, and there's an airplane there. Well, you got more time to react at 500 feet than 200 feet. At 200 feet, you really have no time to react.
Right, do it. Harrison Ford, you can land in the taxi.
Exactly.
So if it's only
It'll
one way, it's
be
actually
happy.
easier because there's only a choice.
and
So,
you also imply that the error has been corrected, or that could be coming out of the FEMA.
so let's sidebar into that for a minute. I can tell you what I've done. Because of the complexity of this, I have been working with the town's attorney. We've interviewed a consultant, we've interviewed some town staff, and last Friday we had a long meeting with the FAA folks that were involved in this project. That's about what I can tell you at this point. We do kind of have some steps laid out going forward, but it has not been resolved.
So ultimately, would that be coming out of, if it doesn't get resolved, coming out of the airport budget?
That's an option, and that's what this large spreadsheet kind of spells out, an option of how we might pay ourselves back for that. Again, I have postponed this CIP meeting because I wanted to talk to FAA first on Friday, and I'm still, I'll be honest with you, I don't mind saying this publicly, I'm not comfortable at this point agreeing to this.
Well, I don't think it should come out of the people at all, but that's my opinion.
And the elected officials feel that way too, and I've shared that with the
It
FAA.
should be filed and be funded by whoever was supposed to pay it. Or have a claim to insurance company.
So that's what I can share with you at this point, and I appreciate your patience. I wish it were easier than that, but that's what we've been working on, so. But I do appreciate that feedback. That's helpful to me, and I don't know if the rest of the commission feels that way, but it is helpful to me as I plan to go into the CIP meeting with Irv. You know, my feeling is I don't want to use this money for payback. I want to use it for these other
The town
projects.
already took 300,000 of that money, that was airport money. I mean, we pay back another however much it is, I don't remember the exact number, but there won't be much in it at all. It'll be 5 years before we collect enough money down another project.
Well, that's why this is, if you look at this big paper, everything is 4 or 5 years pushed back.
That's correct. Too small.
Anyway, I appreciate the conversation on that. And that's kind of how I intend to proceed with this, unless there's any strong objection that I pick up from you folks or the elected folks in the meantime. So are you relatively comfortable with this approach for capital approval? Is there anything, let me ask it this way, is there anything you don't see on here that you think we should have on here?
Other than where did the numbers come from? And put the numbers on the paper. Who estimates those numbers, 2027, $300,000 for? Whatever. Where did the numbers come from?
So the accrual of entitlement funds is at a rate of $150,000 a year.
Right.
So that's where the approval comes from.
No, the expenditures, who put the numbers on the expenditure?
I believe, Irv, you'll have to help me answer this. Was that Tim Lesage who did that?
Those numbers are probably carried over from the previous years. So I don't know. They look familiar from the past couple of years that I've been involved in it. I think they're just carried over, so.
So they're irrelevant, really. The numbers don't mean anything. You put a job on the bid.
Oh, yeah, they're estimates, exactly. Yeah, these are estimates. They're not, yes, that's a good point. They're not hard and fast, they're estimations. One thing that I would like to talk about a little bit, Irv, and we talked about it in our meeting that we do need to have a pavement management plan. And Dave was gonna work that up. He didn't think that was an awful lot of money, did he? It's like 5 or 10 grand.
I think, yeah, about 5 or 10,000, he said.
Should we program that in here someplace, like in 2023 or something? I know it's
I don't
not,
see why not, sure.
we probably should include that.
It's usually not, the amount's so low that the FAA won't fund it unless it's over 25,000 is the problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we need to do that ourselves, right?
yeah, typically, with a small amount, yeah.
So that'll go in our operating budget.
Should we review the current master plan just to make sure that things that were important in that getting carried forward to,
We could, I don't have one with revisions due for the last project.
what's that?
I don't have a master plan in my possession with revisions from the last project.
Well, I think the master plan that we had that Irv did in 2012,
I have not.
other than, you know, the runway extension, I think all that stuff is still relevant.
But it looks like we're doing it next year, right?
Right.
If we stick to this, we're gonna redo it.
Right, and just to familiarize ourselves with the things that maybe we didn't get done over the last 10 years that we felt were important then, that, you know, they don't fall through the cracks.
Irv, can you verify my understanding that if we, how do I put this? The next couple of years are very, more rigid than the following 8 in this plan, right? So we want to get in the queue for specific things in the next couple of years, but it's more flexible, say in year 3, if the commission says, oh, we.
Yeah, the first 2 years are the most,
Yeah.
yeah, the first 2 years are the most critical. The FAA is always looking out to 5 years for for planning purposes, but the first 2 years are critical. They don't want you to make any changes to it unless it's absolutely necessary. Did that answer your question?
It does. So if the commission is comfortable with working on the master plan next year, and then it looks like there's a gap there in 2023, they have some flexibility if they say in 2023 or 2022, oh geez, we'd like to have whatever it is in 2024. They still have the time to program for that. You know, they're not excluding any projects if they don't get it in right now.
And also at this point, you don't know what kind of project's going to fall out of the master plan too. It could change everything.
Another 1,000 feet. Okay.
I'm okay with it, but we're going to be meeting very frequently if that happens. I don't know where you put it, though. I don't know which 1,000 feet to go. Okay.
So is it fair to assume that some of these projects have been pushed back because of the era? Is that why there's so little happens between 25 and 29?
I think the logic behind that, Larry, is to accumulate funds. I think, what's the maximum, Mark? Is it 450 that we can have in the coffers for entitlement funds?
600,000. Once you hit 600,000, you start losing it off the back end.
Okay, so it's 600,000. Okay,
4 years, yeah, 4 years.
okay. And we don't get penalized for the 300,000 we loaned to Pittsfield, right? So we can we have 600,000 plus that 300 on the books? Do you know?
No, 600,000 is the max you can carry.
No matter what. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And they will take it away.
So do we have any projected serious projects in the next few years?
I'm not aware of anything. I'm open to your suggestion.
Sorry,
The master
that's fine with that.
That's the only one that I'm aware of.
And the parking configuration needs continuing to look at, but we haven't had a problem with space that I know of, this, so I don't there a lot. We keep,
Yeah, no, I mean, it hasn't been that bad. It's just when net jets from they block the whole taxiway or.
well, yeah, but that's, same as that guy, Katie, who does the same thing.
Down the line. I go direct to the hangar.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Joe.
Okay.
What else is, do we need to do today?
I think that was generally it. I just wanted to reintroduce you all to Irv. I'm assuming most of you worked with him before. He's not the engineer, he's the planner. I got that wrong in our last meeting. The planner was very.
Yeah, I got over the insult.
Yeah, very familiar with Rangeley. He's worked for us.
You know, if Lifeline, how often they use the King Air? They still using the helicopter. I know the King has been very busy. I heard they were in the market for another one because it's been so busy.
I don't know how often. I do know they landed it here. Fire chief confirmed that. So they have landed for an emergency call, not recently, within the last month or two.
Because people do ask me that, because, you know, all the extension, runway extension, well, are we using it?
My opinion is they landed there once and that guy's still alive. It wasn't going to be. It's a good $20 million spent. If it was your kid or mine. But some people don't feel that way, but the day is coming when it will be that person's. Maybe.
Does anyone keep a record of that? Anyone?
Oh, I'm sure that EMS would have that record. I'm sure Lifeline would have that record. Yeah.
Isn't it on
I
guard?
was just gonna say it might be
I
on
see
guard.
right there.
Yeah, might be on, it will be on guard, I believe. Yeah. I don't know if that's the tail number, but it does have a serial number on that.
Someone get a report from the FAA on these critical injuries.
On how many people?
Yeah. Where's that? How many people just filed to be broke?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yes.
But,
I haven't exported it yet out of this guard system, but then, so when somebody flies over, you can, if you look at that, there's a number that, I don't know if it's a radio number, what it is, comes up. Irv probably knows. Irv, tell us about guard. What do you know about that thing? What can we get from that?
There was a lot of echoing in there. I didn't understand the question, Joe.
So the guard system, GARD, that
Right.
we have from the DOT, can we pull information about planes? What information can we pull about planes that are landing in range?
I'm not sure what version you have, but I will say this, that with the advent of ADS-B, the requirement, for those that are familiar with it, the FAA can give you very detailed records of every aircraft that comes into and leaves the airport. I've been using this successfully for the past few years on master plans, and
They need to be IFR or either way.
if the airplane's ADS-B is on and it's supposed to be, it's tracked. They can tell you where the plane came from, what day, what time it landed, what runway it landed, what runway it took off on, where it's going. There's a lot of detailed data in that.
That would be interesting to see how many larger or whatever it is, 'cause you don't know what's happening up there after 5 at night, before 5 in the morning.
Right. So Irv, you use that on master planning, you said?
I do, yep, I do.
Okay. Do you have access to ours remotely?
No, I have to request it. It's got to go through the FAA. I typically go to Ralph and ask him for it, and he just doesn't routinely give it to me. I got to go through the channels to ask for the data and what do I need it for and stuff like that. But he provides it.
Well, just give you demos.
No, all the information is right there on that screen.
Yeah, there's a lot of information.
Does that information go to the town or is it going somewhere else? You know?
It's going to DOT or FAA. I've poked around in there and looked at some information, but I don't know if I'm getting everything the FAA is getting. I don't think so, but I may be wrong. We can look at it.
Yeah.
you don't know the tail number for the Lifeline, do you? Anybody know the tail number for the Lifeline?
I know.
Anyway, under all business we moved,
You did, yep.
new business, we need to talk about election of officers and what period.
From July 1 or from now until June 30th next year.
And how many people are thrown off already versus how many people don't want to be on. I mean, how many people want, a timeout, right? Some people time out. Like I was elected for 2 years or.
No, I don't think you time out, not in this case. Your bylaws they don't touch on that.
Right, I just got put on 3 more years.
So you do time out.
Huh?
You do time out.
Your term runs, but But there's not term limits.
I don't get that,
You're
no,
not
no.
restricted.
So you have to be voted back in.
And election of officers is an annual thing.
So who was up before we do?
You're the chairman and the vice chairman. And I,
Not if I said it 2 years left, right?
you
Oh,
know, the
5 years.
officers every single year. Right.
Oh,
Chairman,
it's just-
we elect
I thought
the
it was
chairman.
actually-
No, the selectmen appoint
I misunderstood.
the members of the airport.
I misunderstood.
And I'd like to make a motion that we elect Jim Ferrara as chairman.
Negative, what?
What is that, Judy?
All the operations per day, per month, at what times. Everything.
You're vice chairman now, I think it'd be a good.
I think vice chair is good for it.
You're
You
here,
don't want to do it anymore?
you don't go away in the winter, you're here all the time, you've got a lot of experience
No,
being
no,
on
I appreciate
air
it.
traffic control.
No, I appreciate it, but I'd rather not, to be honest. Thank you, though. Thank you, seriously. I'd rather not.
So when do we need to do the election of officers?
According to the bylaws, it's after the selectmen appoint you annually. Typically, you would do it, to answer your question, typically for housekeeping, you do it July 1 or thereabouts, your first meeting in July. This is the first time you've met since July, so.
I appreciate it, but I got a lot of stuff going on. I've been doing too much and trying to cut back a little
It's
bit.
not the greatest day for us to talk about this with only four of our 7 people here, but
You can table it if you'd like.
who else is, who's missing? Carol, Dale?
Mike Llewellyn, Brian Zina, Carol.
I think we should talk, I don't want to nominate somebody that no one will be nominated, we're wasting all month.
Yeah, we can continue along the way we are.
If everybody's okay with that, since we have such a small board tonight, doesn't make sense to appoint people to a position they may not want.
I agree.
I'm just saying, like, people listening, some of them may want to be there.
Right. Some people might have a real interest in doing it, you know.
Right. So I take a motion to table that for now, and then let's talk about it when we have a full board. For now, we'll leave the officers as are written.
I can second that.
They're all in favor of that. We have a vote. New business, we already did that. Announcements. No announcements.
If we appoint a committee to work on the master plan, the subcommittee, I'd like to be on that. I worked a lot with Herb Deck on the
Oh, I like
last
the
one, and I
chairman, you don't want me.
enjoyed it. No, that's not what I did.
So, I take a motion to adjourn, and thank you all for joining us.
We know we need the next meeting date.
It'll be the last Monday of September. I can't see that from here.
27.
27 at 4:30.
Now, would you take a motion to adjourn?
Actually, wait, before we do that, so this last page, is this what we're trying to stick to, or did you just want to show us this? You know,
The
the
small,
budget.
the small page.
Yeah, that's the one that I intend to, Herb and I intend to take into the CIP meeting on the 15th.
Okay.
And again, if after going through the master plan, so next year, if you say, oh, we want to reprogram something for 23 or not 23, 24 or something like that, you'll have time to do that.
Now, the money that was extra money from the soil at the airport is not in these numbers, correct?
That is correct.
It's sitting on the sidelines.
That, yes, that number is now in the general reserve.
And the era number is no longer, not yet in these numbers, it's just in your accounting system.
Correct, yeah, the runway, anything to do with the runway extension is not reflected in this one.
Now,
It is, however, reflected in this proposal, which I am not in favor of at this point.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
I would accept that motion, I'll second that motion, and then I'll take a vote to adjourn at 5:20. Thank you all for the airport community meeting on August 30th.
Thank you, Art, for coming. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.